Welcome to The Introvert Sisters, the podcast by introverts for introverts, hosted by Sharon and Lisa, two INFJs with a lot to say.
All right. So your mantra is Black narratives matter, and you use the hashtag Black by popular demand. So have you always been this unapologetically Black in life and on LinkedIn? Have you always led with your Blackness?
I've been unapologetically me.
Okay.
Right? It's only probably latter. Because, I was having a discussion with a Black professional working in Britain a couple of days ago. And I said, look at all the time you've been working and not wanted anyone to realize you're Black. Even though you know you're Black.
Yeah.
Because everywhere I'd worked, I was the only Black male. There've been a few Black females.
Yeah.
Right.
And everyone's fighting their own battle.
Yeah.
Oh, of course,
you
yeah.
know? So it's a case. So I used to get, ever since I've been at the age of 17, James, do you have a criminal record?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no. James, are you sure you don't have a criminal record?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what?
Wow.
What's the follow-up? The follow-up, are you sure? So it's always like, well, James, you smoke weed. I've never smoked anything in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's impossible. You're a Black man. What? You must be a criminal. So there's been like a whole, for want of a better expression, stigma around being Black, especially in the workplace.
Yeah.
Right.
So you try and keep your head down.
Yeah.
Say, I've got the qualifications, I've got the skills. Let me keep my head down and not make being Black, the focus point.
Hi, I'm Sharon. Yeah, I get
And
that.
I'm Lisa.
It's only now you
together-
realize, well, hold on.
We're the Introvert Sisters.
It's always been.
Welcome.
Mhm.
This is a
Oh
really
my God.
special
So when I'm having
episode for us
whether it's
because
being
we are
spoken of,
welcoming
whether
our
it's
very
actually being
first guest
spoken
of
of
the
or not, it is the
podcast.
focus.
Oh yes, absolutely. The writer,
So
humorist,
I'm having the
theatre
kind of
producer,
conversations
and
I'm having
LinkedIn's
prior
poet
to
laureate
that
James
people-
Pogson. Welcome to the show, cuz.
the whole thing. Thank you very much,
Welcome.
cousins. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Here from the UK.
Wonderful.
That's what I was always my
Wonderful.
true
And
self. That's probably why I've been
it's so
successful.
wonderful. We've discovered on LinkedIn that not only is there
because
a
let
Black
me
LinkedIn, but
tell
there's a
you
Caribbean
as one
LinkedIn
who,
as well.
because I'm different
And
from
this is kind of
from
how
you and
we
Sharon, in that I
connected
have
with
spent
James.
more
We were
time
talking,
in
and all of a sudden
corporate
it came
and,
out that
very
he had
little
a
time
St. Kitts connection.
freelance
We had a
working for
Barbados
myself.
connection, and so
And
we've been
it is
we've been
an
enjoying each other's
impossibility
posts and
almost
talking ever
to
since.
show up
And so
as your
we're going
full
to
self,
talk
show up as your
about a lot
authentic
of
self,
things
whatever you want to
today,
call it.
including
Well,
this,
if
this
you
Caribbean
want to keep the
connection.
job,
But first, over to you,
if you want to keep
yes.
the job,
Yeah, so
if you're
we'll
interested
just
in
get
getting
this one out of the
promoted,
way
which,
because we're the Introvert Sisters.
less and less.
So
I
we're
don't
just
really
going
care.
to
I just
ask you,
want to do the work at this
do
point.
you consider
But
yourself
if you're
an
at that point
introvert
where
or
you're
an extrovert?
interested, if you've
I
drunk
consider
the
myself
Kool-Aid,
an introvert.
right?
Some people who
And
have
you're
been
interested
listening
in
to me on podcasts might be
ascending
thinking
the
he's
corporate
crazy.
ladder, you
But no, I am.
you have to
Very
sort
much
of
so an
attenuate
Have you always kind
your
of known you're an
blackness,
introvert,
your
because
voice,
like for
your
both Sharon and I,
appearance,
like gradually came to us
and
that
it's
this is
interesting
who we are.
because but have you always
Another
known?
question I had for you
Well,
was,
I
have you
didn't
ever
quite
code
know it
switched
was being an
To
introvert.
get or keep a
But as a
job, but I
child,
guess
and
I guess we
know
have
there's
our
a difference
answer.
between being shy and being an introvert. Never code
Yes.
switched.
I didn't know
However, modified my behavior so I didn't get a Rodney King beating. I was extremely.
Oh well,
Yes.
so
Oh,
was that
well.
okay? Was that
Didn't
is that
hang around
in
a lot of
general?
people.
That
I
sounds like a
still
specific
don't.
incident that you referred
No,
to.
Sister here.
what
in general.
I realized
Don't
very
like
quickly,
big crowds. I've
being
never
the
liked
only
parties.
black male.
Wow.
Wow.
And you're around white spaces and
I
they
can't
think
raise
you're a
my
black
hands above
guy,
shoulder.
that you're a party guy. And I'm like,
Right.
I like
Okay.
parties. 'Cause that's good.
Yeah.
I've never had a birthday
That's gonna
party.
look
Dangerous, isn't it? And that's not me
Yeah.
moaning. Never raised. I've never
Okay.
wanted one, but as a child,
Right.
never had one.
It's hilarious.
I could see the
It's
situation.
interesting.
It's
You're
like, oh, he's being a bit
actually the
aggressive. It
only
took 15
other
of us to
person
hold
that
him
I've
down.
met.
Yeah.
And somebody accidentally
That
snapped his
like
leg.
okay, I had
But
my
he was
first
being
birthday
aggressive.
party at age 50.
So I've worked in offices, as I'm sure
So I didn't even realize that it had happened. I'm like, I never missed them.
Yes.
Good.
But you can't do that. Oh, that's even because I think
So
I had
that's actually
the first one I
interesting
remember. I had
because
one at
I've
16.
definitely been conscious.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
then
during the time that
I
I worked in
remember,
offices,
and it was a small
mostly in
group,
England,
let's
actually,
be
is
clear.
that,
It wasn't one of these big brands.
not being too
Was
loud,
6 or 7 girls from my class, at
not
school
doing anything
that
that
I got
was
on with,
perceived
right?
to be sort of
And
too
then
black.
I
You know what I mean?
That my next
Because of
one was
because of
when I was
the heavy
30.
judgment that comes with it.
You know,
You
because I've
know?
experienced that
Yeah.
outside. And then my next
in
one
that
was
I
probably
remember
when I
our
was 50.
landlady once being
Yeah.
surprised that we didn't play loud
You know?
music.
Not a big
know,
need in the introvert
You know,
world.
all those kinds of
I didn't
negative
have a party on my
connotations
50th.
that you
I
don't
went out
that you
for
don't
lunch. I went
particularly
out for
dance,
lunch
that
with
you
a
don't
friend.
party, that you don't
Then
smoke,
in the
that you don't
evening,
take drugs,
I was on local
because
radio in my
they see,
capacity as a youth.
they lead with
Right.
your blackness.
And the presenter sang me
You know what I
happy
mean?
Mhm.
But
Oh,
but
wow.
what I'm getting from you
Yeah.
also,
That works.
James, is
That
that
works. That
as a
works.
black
That
man, you
works.
have to take it to
You
even
know,
another level.
so we
because
have that in
obviously, let's
common as
face it,
well.
If black people in general
I
are perceived as
suspected
being threatening, black
that you
men
were an introvert,
are
but I
perceived
wanted
as being
to
more threatening, aren't
be
they?
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, literally every black
Yeah.
guy I've talked to, parties, we have to hold it down. Black women,
Yeah.
even,
Right.
I mean, I fell asleep in a nightclub that the black women had to deal with.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that takes
That
talent.
takes it
So
a new level.
even having
A new level.
and if anyone's listening thinking, oh, he must have been drunk. No, sober.
Mhm.
I was just bored. I was there with my
You were
older
just
brother, visiting him at university. Otherwise, it's funny how like two black people in a working environment is a riot.
All right.
Bringing white people together
Three
is
introverts
normal.
all together. Three
I know.
Christian people all together.
It's so funny you say
So
that.
let's
There's one
talk
company
now
that I
about
worked
the
for
thing that we
where,
connected with you
of
over,
course,
which
I
is your
think on my
writing
team I was
as well.
they
So your
know me.
educational background is finance, business, public
there were very
administration, and
few
management. So
black
choosing
people
writing as
throughout the
a
entire
career seems a
company.
bit of a
But
pivot
I
from
noticed
that.
that at
So how did
lunch,
that come about?
I
I
would
mean, what
see,
made you decide
shall
that
we
you were
say,
going to
groups of
become a
other
writer?
ethnicities gathered
I
at
don't even
long
think it
communal
was
lunch
a clear
tables, and I realized,
decision.
I'm like, wow. I'm like, I've
At
never
school,
seen
especially as a
a
young
group
child,
of,
my
black
voice,
people.
my first voice
All
was
the other
my writing
ethnicities
voice,
felt
'cause
perfectly
as I said,
fine
I
and
was
safe and
extremely
whatever
Mhm.
to gather,
I was that
with
child
their
at
own
school
kind, so to
who
speak.
the teacher would
Right?
read out my story.
Oh,
And it was only when I was
Deeply
leaving,
embarrassed.
I saw
Of
the,
course.
he said to, of course, there was a private
And
black
so
people on Slack channel.
when I got to the age of about 15,
Now you have to have those
I don't know
spaces,
about
right?
You have to have those
in
safe
Barbados or in
spaces.
the
So
US, but they're bringing the
I,
careers officer.
as the
Yeah.
person who had been there for the
And I was
for the
always in the
shortest time,
top
I'm like,
stream from 11
is
to
it my
16. I was in
imagination
the
or
top
is this
stream.
really a
Me
thing
and a few
where,
other black
you
kids.
guys don't
And I
don't
thought, well,
have it?
okay,
Like,
because
no,
I'm
like,
good
we
at
can't, they get,
English. Journalism
the powers
sounded
that be,
okay.
get
Yeah.
scared,
Because both my
And there-
parents
and
worked in
there are
factories.
repercussions. And I actually
Okay.
remember
And I
that
said to
same
myself,
company
the only thing
once,
that's going to dirty my hands is ink.
one of the powers that
Right?
be,
Because
Yeah.
my mum
saw
and dad
me
came home
and
tired.
another
My
black
dad's
person. They
injured his back at
eventually
work.
they
And I
hired
thought,
one other black person on my
Mhm.
I
team.
didn't know what I wanted
And
to do
so
at that
they
stage.
saw
It's
the two
like,
of us
well, I'm going to work
talking,
in an office
and,
because in my mind there was only office work and
literally
factory work.
like got so
Right,
very
right.
upset and
Right, so I thought,
stopped
well, I can write. How
talking
about
to me
journalism?
for
So
like
we
a couple
go in
of
to
weeks
see the
as
careers officer,
punishment.
and it's this old
Stop
white
talking
guy
to me,
who looked
give
up,
me some
saw a
really
black
horrible
guy, me,
assignments, etc.,
and he
etc.
said, "What do you
Because
want to do?"
of course, two black people
said,
talking meant
"Quite
that
like
there
to
was
do
mutiny,
journalism." And he said, "No, no, no.
right?
The youth training
Mutiny was afoot.
The youth training
So
scheme.
here's the thing that I always wonder about
Wow.
that kind of
So
experience.
what
What are
is,
they feeling guilty
for
about? What is
those
it that
like
they are
myself
doing behind our
who
backs
don't know
that
what
makes
is
them
what is
so
the youth
worried when
training
we
scheme?
start talking to
It
each
was,
other?
I think what you
Right.
call it
That's
now
what
is
I'm
more like
wondering.
an apprenticeship, like working
Yeah.
in a factory. I had a situation with your
Learn-
hands.
With your hands.
learn a trade.
Exactly
Learn
what
a
you were
trade.
trying to
whenever
avoid,
the
right?
manager, yes. So found out that every black boy go for a year, regardless of what stream we were in. I always had lunch on my own. It didn't bother me. That's why it was.
Right.
Yes.
So let's go to pizza. So you're thinking, hold on a minute, that's not right. So there's racist.
Yes.
What can you do?
Racism is just everywhere. Like
It
you're
is
saying, listen, I'm like,
everywhere.
it
I mean, I-
starts from school.
And I said, I joked to people that when I was born, and the white midwife slapped my bum, I slapped in the face. So I ended up getting like last time a white person touching me and a piece of gum. So I get back to the office now. But yeah,
Good one.
it's even I would have been eating, thinking about while I'm waiting for my after O levels. There's A levels.
Right.
Yeah.
So I eat, and everybody. I was always told all the white people go, "Ooh, why we have to have my dinner tonight?" I'm thinking, what? James, you're good enough to do O levels. I thought they were joking. But I've got
Till the
two older
next
brothers.
day,
The one next to me is 2
one
years
of the women's
older.
talking.
So I saw
was
how
so
he
full from lunch.
was struggling
I
with
didn't
his
have to
A-levels,
make
how
dinner,
much
and I
work he
opened-
had to do.
I opened a tin of
And I
fruit
thought,
cocktail for my husband. I don't
Okay.
know those.
And I'm like, so
what do you mean?
I looked
What?
for an alternative.
So they looked at me and they said,
James, you didn't eat
when you get
home,
home.
did you? And I said, listen,
Which is
the
I was
equivalent
back
of
at my
it.
desk before 1
Right.
o'clock.
Uh-huh.
I didn't leave here
I did it
until
in business and finance.
5:30.
Yeah.
Not because I was really
What do you mean I'm
about
not
business
gonna
and
eat?
finance, but it's
That's not
like,
food.
what
Of
else
course.
is there to do?
Right.
I said to
Okay.
them, I said, you see that?
And you know, we
piece
West
of
Indian
pizza and
parents,
garlic
what
bread.
that?
I'd have been
And I'm
yamming
like,
that
it's the
while I was
equivalent of
cooking.
eating
What you
bread.
want to eat? Why you don't want to eat?
They were like, I look at, and I turned to the black guy. I said, sis, you
Look
know
how
he
he
struggled.
struggled.
And
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
James John, you
you don't.
and I was glad I did it.
Right.
And I said, white people don't
They
eat.
taught us presentation.
And I started saying,
Okay.
you know, I said, the only time you lot eat is on Christmas
Useful.
Day when you yam this, you yam that. I said,
Yeah.
and report
Marga.
writing. That's what
Okay.
Marga.
And I knew how to
I
write
just let
this
off. Marga, you not eat
I
nothing.
love it.
presentation.
And I said, oh, but you're talking about starving people in Africa. We eat
Wow.
food, you know.
Because those are skills that a lot of people don't
Yes.
learn until they're like deep
Yes.
And I'm
into it
looking,
and
I'm going,
enjoy
sis,
it.
are you with me,
Exactly.
sis? And
Have
she's like,
them
yeah, on your
sort
own.
of like at the beginning, you know.
I'm still here.
She
I'm
wasn't
still,
getting
I'm still
involved in
here
that.
imagining the
like,
conversation
I've been
you're
here
in
too
your house
long.
when you're saying, no,
They
I'm
don't
not
think
doing
I'm
A
black.
levels, you
Just
know?
look like they don't think I'm
Listen.
black. You're on
It
your
got to the
own.
point where
Oh boy.
my parent, unknown
Well,
to me,
You know, people
my
have different ways
parents
of getting
talked to the
through,
church pastor.
getting through the day. All the
Oh,
getting
so
through
it
the
was,
day.
it
So
was
the phone,
you know.
so the
serious.
phone,
I was
so
gonna
the
say,
phone
like,
rang.
even when I was a
I answered the phone,
Yeah.
heard his voice, and I said,
a
"Yeah, I just
copywriter.
get sick, my mum and dad." And he goes, "No, I want to talk to you." And about what? And I used to do a lot of face to face. Why you don't want to do A levels? That's how you got your business.
Wow. Yeah.
And
And I was thinking, how do you know? I was the only one. I'm like, oh, my parents told him. And
Yeah.
but the way he was talking
it's
to
so
me,
exhausting
it's
though, don't
it's
you
almost as
find?
if my parents said, "I think
Or were you
James is
always able
possessed.
to?
You need to
Yeah,
speak
it
to
is,
him."
right?
And I was like,
so
You
having
know,
to
Caribbean
perform.
parents. I mean, I don't know about
Yes.
other, cultures.
So I'm
Caribbean parents
thinking,
get very
get up in the morning,
disturbed
because these white
with
people,
any what they consider to be any deviation from
Yeah.
their
The norm.
accepted norm. Yeah,
and I quickly
and
realized, and I thought, okay,
just
so I'm
suffice
trying
it
to
to
get
say,
business
us and everybody we know, we've had our parents
speaking.
make similar interventions for no reason,
How am I
mind you.
going to convince?
Yes.
a bunch of white
Because they thought that what
But
you
I
were doing
snap
was
on the
not
right
going
bit
along the
of
right
English
path as they saw it.
but I speak
And
it.
you know, let's be
As
fair,
a
they do it out of love.
As a
Okay,
six,
they want you to have the best opportunities
Yeah.
in life, but sometimes they can't
this
see
is where
that
my
the opportunity,
performance
the
skills
route
came in,
that
and
you are planning to go
storytelling aspects.
might actually work out.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Right?
All
Okay.
right.
I mean, here's the funny thing for
Because
me.
I found a lot of education's the
and I'm
key.
sure
You're
you two
thinking,
find this
what
as
do you do?
copywriters.
You know, my mum came.
businesses
My mum came to England
don't know
when
how
she was
to sell.
17. Don't
Wow.
know how
Wow.
to promote what they do. My dad
Yeah.
came to
Mhm.
England when he was
And it frustrated
me. I'll be sitting down thinking,
Okay.
just you got a
oh,
business.
they didn't come
and you
together.
Don't know how
Right.
to present your business. They didn't
Mhm.
meet each other until they came. And I'm thinking, is this what
Okay.
white
Right,
privilege
right,
is?
okay.
Came from different villages. You could just I
Right.
knew my mum's.
You don't even need to put in any effort, right?
You know,
Yeah.
because
My
I'd say
granddad was
a
a
copywriter. No,
growing up.
was a manager.
What?
Of an
So-
estate.
So
Was a
wait,
guy could say
dad
I'm
was a
you know,
foreman
was a guy could say I'm a
of
landscape
estates.
gardener. White
Okay.
of course he
Right.
is.
And
And he
my
probably
mum-
isn't,
Yes.
but he counts.
Yes, because there's a way in which there are certain
So he
professions
knew
that
the
are seen as
James name.
acceptable and
Okay.
normal
Right,
for you
right,
as a
right.
black
And
man
he knew
or
who
for us as
Mr.
black women,
James was.
and others are
Mhm.
not. There's a way in which a
Oh.
certain level of qualification
Okay.
is seen
He
as
ended up
normal
marrying-
for
as I
you
used to-
as
see how he used
for
to
black people, and others are
introduce my
not. I mean,
mum
you know,
to his
we told the
friends.
story before about
This is one of Mr.
you know
James
co-workers of Lisa's doing a double take
Yeah.
when she said
All
she had
right.
a
Like that.
master's.
Okay.
Right?
And
I've
listen to how he used
experienced
to
that
introduce
myself,
me.
right?
This is
So,
the
the,
last
so
I remember when that happened, texting
And
Sharon,
I'll stand there saying,
you know,
"Name's James."
saying, well, you know, what are they going to do if they find out that you
Yeah.
have nothing? It's not
This
that
is
hard.
This is the last one. Did
You know,
you
it's-
steal them?
it's so
You've got to love
exhausting
West
because
Indian,
on the one
Caribbean
hand you're
parents.
holding
I
Oh my
yourself,
gosh.
you're holding yourself
Right?
in
Style
so
all
that you
their
don't
own. A
get
style
the
all
angry
their
angry
own.
black person
Which
stereotype.
actually is a
You
good
know, you're trying to
segue
be better than
to
everybody
the
else
next
because you
question I
know
want
that's
to
the
ask
only
you,
way you're going to
James. So
get
it's actually
anywhere,
about your
and
writing
you're still
style,
being doubted at
because
every turn.
that is
You know?
one of
It
it's
really is
one of
exhausting.
the things that most
I
stands
remember
out
going to one
about
networking
you.
I used to do a breakfast
Obviously, you know,
meeting
we've
at
connected on
7
LinkedIn,
o'clock
but you know, even like on
a hotel
Instagram and Facebook,
Monday
I follow
mornings.
some other writers and whatever. I've
It sounds dodgy,
never
but it wasn't.
seen
Right?
anybody
And I walked
write
in,
the way
and I
you
remember
do.
there's a
Like
group of
one
white guys
one of
talking,
one of my
One of them
favorites from you.
turns
It's very,
me-
very,
James, you
very
know what it's
short.
like on the streets.
So I'll read it if you
And I
don't mind.
says, no, I was brought up
The
in
one that's called A Very Unlikely Conversation.
Yeah, but James, you do. I'm like,
Right?
Why?
So
No,
it's
no,
between
no,
law and
no,
order.
no.
So Law says,
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I haven't
What?
heard from in the
What?
longest time.
So
And
insulting.
Order says,
That
so
box,
insulting. Go on
that
then.
box that they put us in is
Law
real
says,
narrow, you know.
Just
Really,
real
really
tiny.
narrow.
Order says,
Tiny,
so
tiny
I
box.
just
for real. I just want to ask a question because you mentioned
And,
about
you know,
basically people not being or not knowing how to market themselves,
just
right?
a little
view
so,
into
and you do
your
something
your
called
mind
black
and your
narrative
style and the way
clarity
it works. I
coaching.
mean, guys,
Yes.
just do
Did-
yourselves a favor
did
and
that,
follow James on LinkedIn.
inform
This,
but yeah,
did your
so
observation
your
that
style
people
is
don't
kinda
know
like
how to market themselves
poetic,
inform your decision
almost,
to get into the coaching world, or how did that
sounds
come
to me
about?
when I read
And
I mean,
it sounds
please
almost
explain
like you
what it
are
is as well.
performing
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
let me just be real
or
first.
you know, like
Uh-huh.
As a
like doing
copywriter,
spoken
I mean, I'll be
word or
sitting down with
something.
my
Yeah.
clients.
So have you always written this
And
way?
let's just
Is it a
say
style that
one of them
developed
was
over
an
time?
architect. I knew he was an architect. I would
Right.
say,
Give us some
okay,
insight.
so what is it you do? Because
Yes.
when I was
And they'd
about
say
17, come up with a sentence. When I was at college, I started the conversation following a professional black theatre company here in Birmingham. And it was
Right.
always a different, and I just shadowed them.
Interesting.
Okay.
And I would just sit at the back, just watching everything, what's going on. Another answer.
Okay.
And then
When I'd start
and
saying
then in the
something,
breaks,
surely
we'd
you
be
do-
talking, and they'd say, and I go, yeah, that's it.
You're quite
So I said,
funny. Because I never said
why is
much.
it that I know what you
I
do,
never said
but you're
you're
quite
quite
funny? And then one
Good
day
question.
they got in touch with me
And they said,
and said, we've got an
This
opportunity
is what you do.
to do a play on radio. One of the black community
And
magazines.
all my
Nice.
clients,
Can you
I think-
come up
I
with
think in the
something? 16 years, I probably
And at
only
the time,
had
I'd finished
black
college,
clients,
Okay.
and I was
Asian,
working,
mainly white.
and I'm sitting
Yeah.
there thinking, in the British civil
How
service.
are you not making money?
Okay.
Right.
I thought it was going to be a summer
If
job.
you don't even know
because
what you
I was
do.
waiting for the
Oh,
results
even-
to see if I could get into my chosen university.
Yeah.
Right.
It
know, the whole
turns
thing
out I
about
stayed
your
there for
unique
about
selling
a year. proposition. So I took
Yeah.
something called
Oh,
deferred
that makes a lot of
entry from
sense, James.
university.
But we don't
So
want it to be that.
I
I
put
said,
it off.
that's what it is.
Which came in very handy for my
Right.
course because they
Right,
said, oh
right,
my
right.
gosh, you're working in the British
You want it to be
civil service.
something else.
You don't have to
but
do
it's
a
not
4-year
something
course.
else. I said, okay.
Because the
Let's
third
look at
year
what your
was going to
customers
be
are
a
saying.
work
Oh, your
placement.
customers are saying, what
Oh.
I'm
So
saying,
they
your
said, well,
unique
because
selling
you're working in the
proposition
civil
is.
service, you can
Right.
do the
Yeah, but we
first
want it to
year,
be something
second
different.
year,
And I'm like,
and go
I'm done.
straight into the
I've
fourth
sacked,
and
I
final
think I
year.
sacked more
Oh,
clients
nice.
than I had.
So I stayed on in the
That's the only sweet thing about being a
Right.
freelance
The department
copywriter.
was the
Yeah.
department of trade and
It
industry.
is. Oh, I would agree with you. I would
dealt
agree with you there.
I
You
dealt with
always have the
bankruptcies
option
and
not to continue
liquidations.
working with someone
But at the
if
same
you're not on the
time,
same
in
wavelength.
Britain,
If it's,
in the
you know, if it's too
70s
hard
and
work, if they're not
80s
paying on
and
time,
early
if they're not
90s,
paying enough,
pirate
if they're, you
radio
know, if you're
stations
getting
for the
pushed
black
back for no
communities was
reason and they're not
huge.
recognizing your expertise, right?
And DTR, the Department of
And you don't
Trade
even wanna
and
say,
Industry,
"Shut
used
your
to
mouth!"
close
Obviously,
down
you can't
the
say.
pirate radio stations. No, I've had
So
when this theatre
Yeah.
company said, James,
So
so many, can you come up with an
Like, at the
idea?
time it feels
I
sweet.
created an idea.
And then the next day, you know, when you eat your cereal, you think,
radio
"Why?"
station
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
interrupts this actual,
Like I
this-
could have done with
the
that
actual
little piece of
BBC
change.
magazine
Right.
program.
But you know something, and this is where
I love.
So it's like we interrupt
I have
them,
to give credit to my parents.
still their transmission, because my parents
Right.
almost and I came up with Radio
You gotta
Reggie.
believe in something. You gotta
Acronym
stand
for
Okay.
something. I can't remember what it was. And I've never really
Yeah.
wavered from and so
Okay.
what we did in the play,
So
what I wrote in the
sometimes,
plays,
you know, looking at
in
people,
order to get more
I'm
listeners,
not working with these people.
they faked a raid by
And I
the
think
Department
going
of Trade
what
and
you're saying, Lisa,
and round about the yeah.
Classic.
Because it became
what I-
notorious. If you got raided by
You know,
the
we're
DTI,
hearing a lot about,
yeah, you're
"Oh,
going to come
we
back
need
on
to
air.
change the
So
narrative."
we
Right.
faked it.
Yeah.
Right.
In the,
I say to
and then what
people
actually
is-
happens at the end, they do get raided. The narrative is a
Right.
and everybody listening. Yeah, and the thing is, the way
There's
we
a lot
did
of
it
if you look at
the
radio
black
show,
experience is in America. Program started as normal. It was called Calabash. In the UK, it was like, good evening, everyone.
Right.
Welcome to
Calabash,
Similar
stories.
stories, etc.
Uh-huh.
Then all of a
As
sudden,
I've mentioned
probably
before,
about
both
10,
my
15
parents
minutes
were
in,
on
you
the
heard
same island.
static.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And Britain. And then different
years,
Radio Reggie
met each
comes
other
in.
here.
So everybody actually
Yeah.
thought
So
it was a
there's a
pirate
similar
radio
story.
station. And both green votes.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Classic.
So I've always
narratives.
surrounded
My mum was
myself
the only
around
female on her
performance. She was
Okay.
with
Okay.
her younger
Whoa.
brother.
There was a lot of
and
poets
her
as
uncle. Well,
But you
Oh,
imagine
and
a
I
17-year-old, you're the only
when I was
female
writing
on a
it,
boat.
as Lisa
For the men
said,
for 2
quite
weeks.
poetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of them said
Yeah.
we should be a
Yeah.
different
Different
narratives.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to black people in particular is
But
Well,
I
as
mean,
an
that's what
introvert,
that's what
it's within
that's
our
what it
narratives
sounds like.
that
It,
you'll
you know,
find our humanity.
because I do I
Yes.
don't follow a
Because
lot
you'll
of
get it in the
performance
workplace
poets,
as well.
but a
I used
few.
to get it when
But you
let's
know,
say a
obviously, you
black
can
guy
hear
come
if you
in to
have
deliver
any
something.
sort of musicality or if you're, you know, into words and language, you
How
can
did I know him?
hear
So I turned the
the
table. So when a white white girl
rhythm
would
and,
come,
and
I tend to the
see
white
how
girl,
you,
know.
I mean, you
And they'd be so
weave
upset.
associations together.
Like, so you know
In
what I
a
mean?
way
Nobody
that,
I have ever
Because
seen,
then they realize how
you know,
ridiculous.
and
It is.
as Lisa
Their-
You
said,
think
their
you know,
so?
words
But,
yes,
are.
as Lisa said,
there's
you know,
one
there's
case,
this
there's a,
musicality to your work,
major
right?
department
There's this
store
rhythm.
not far from where we work.
I don't know.
And look out
I
the
don't
window,
know.
you can see the front door.
It's just, it's
And
so
somebody had
different.
on a
It's so
radio.
different from anything else
And
that
the
you see
announcement
anywhere
was,
else.
Black guy had
Right.
gone in there and
You know,
stuff.
and
I look
This was
forward
back
to
in the
your
early
posts.
90s.
I
Oh
really,
my
really
gosh.
do. Right.
And then also
Thank
the
you so
way
much.
you have
So they tell it up on the radio,
way
didn't
of
it?
telling a
James,
story
was it
in
you?
very few words.
Oh,
I mean, that
please.
example,
So I just said
that
calmly,
example
I
that
said,
Lisa read
yeah,
earlier.
so I just said
I mean,
calmly,
there's,
when did it
there's 20
happen?
words in that, there's
I
a lot,
reported
but
to
it tells a story,
report about half an hour ago.
Um,
I said,
So you
where was
talked
I
a
half
little
an
bit
hour
about
You were sitting right there.
about
Ask me
theatre
the
and
question.
radio, but as a
That's my way of saying
British
it.
black narrative storyteller, what else inspires your writing?
You know? And then
Oh
I
my
had another situation where my background, to me, white. I think my parents, one of the white guys, very posh guys, had a war.
Okay.
I mean, Sharon, you were talking about telling and he was firing at all the women. Because we worked in a big open plan on my dad.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
my dad didn't say much, but what he said was a lot.
Yeah.
So he comes
Right,
by
right,
my
right.
desk.
Well, you
His
clearly
back
inherited that.
is towards them. You know, I mean, like I said, for me, the key phrase is standing there above me, and I just look up. And he's got this sometimes what you mean meant, what are you saying? And I said in a solid voice, most of the time it meant, picnic, shut up.
Yes. You're chatting foolishness.
Sometimes that's an invitation to think carefully and retract what you were just saying.
You know,
right?
It's
Take it back quick.
phone them now, because you know we'd be saying stuff very much. And as far as my dad was concerned, and he said, "Well, women look, because if any of that water comes on me, children, you're going out."
Right. Right.
So to him, you have to about 6 floors up to me directly.
Yeah.
The nearest window, can we have so and so? And he goes, "What do you mean?" Feet away. And sometimes they're looking at my mum saying, "What am I saying?" So he's thinking, and he could hear what I said, but he was looking at my mum like to say, "Like I said, what did your child say?" What am I saying?
Sounds like he's going to go through proper channels.
Basically, you know when you were talking about having birthday parties, black women.
Yeah.
I remember when I turned 17.
Yeah.
She said, "Boy, you're not easy enough." And he said, "Congratulations." I said, "Sis, I pressed the shirt myself, you know. I'm not making on white boy's gonna spurt my shirt." Congratulations. But I also said to her, I said, "Imagine now."
He sounds like a character.
Oh my gosh.
Black man holding a gun. Put it this way, in the office. Not a when I completed my degree. A gun. My mum was like, "Congratulations, James." I said, "Thanks, mum." My dad. And the thing is, the telling thing for me, did you go away? His bosses were watching what was going on.
Yeah.
Nobody said, "What?" And he goes, "Did you go away to?" I said, "No." And he imagine if that was me.
You couldn't hold a water pistol.
You wouldn't know that. There's no way.
In that office? No.
So I said, and from his perspective, I gave him a choice. I said, "If you're gonna fire it, speak to your parents."
Yeah.
That's
You know, that is
very,
it's a very West Indian approach as well, a very Caribbean approach.
You know, obviously, this
softly,
generation, it's
speak
like, you know,
softly and just show them the
on a
stiletto
test
and give them the choices as to whether it's going in the ribs or not. Right? Very, very simple.
And you know, I definitely
Growing
relate
up,
with,
as I said to you, my dad's
just
keywords
this
were,
thinking that
"What do you mean?"
you're supposed to go to school. You're supposed to.
When you hear that, it's like,
you're supposed to pass all your exams. You're
There's
supposed to go to
a certain
university.
note in the Caribbean, in the Caribbean
you're not getting
voice,
any
right?
brownie
And they
points
all have it.
for
There's a
what you're
certain
supposed
hint
to
of
do.
steel. No,
Just go and do it.
That can,
Go and
the
do it. Don't
words
embarrass
themselves
the
sound
family name and
innocuous,
keep it
but the
moving.
steel that comes through at a certain
you're
moment,
expected-
and
you're-
you
the-
know
the-
that you
you're
are just
expected
about to
to
tumble
aim
off
for
the precipice,
excellence.
and if you know what's good for you, you
Right?
better
That's
haul
it.
it right the head
when
back.
we used to have
Just
the
right
parents'
all the way
evening
back.
at our school. That's when you know when my mum and you know the bad look, black.
Oh, yes,
If
the
you're
look.
out,
Yes, the
if you're out in
look.
public and your mum give you a bad look, that's when you're looking around and you're looking for a white. They drag me along. Someone needs to take me home. Most kids didn't go because
Same,
so my mum
same
would be like,
you.
"Hello." As sad as it sounds, the paedophile will keep you alive. Your dad is the black Charles Bronson. You remember how me and Charles Bronson would tell you
Yes.
they could kill
Yes.
you. So imagine
Red.
that in a 6'4".
You do
Yes.
believe it.
None of this like
I can see
children's
it.
rights.
Spider
Right, and
presence, yes.
he just looked me. He wasn't, but he just looked me. So my
yeah,
mum would
I
go
got it.
to the teachers. My mum would say,
No.
And you think,
My
yeah,
dad would
she
say, "Tell me
could
about
do
this
it.
Exactly.
Straight to
My
the point.
mum and dad, and what I'm going to say now is not, and he said in school.
Okay.
My mum and
Where
dad
else is he
tell
supposed to
me and my
Exactly.
two
Yeah.
exactly
Very
where
well
the bed is
behaved.
in the garden if need be.
That's how I raised him. Tell me about my son.
Wow.
Right.
Don't tell me what I know. If need be.
I love
We had
that
an apple
actually.
tree.
Yes.
My dad grew carrots and
Just
cabbage
the
and stuff.
expectation that what they have instilled in you
That's the spot right there.
Oh
is
my
what you're going
gosh.
to,
You
the
know, it's
input,
like
you
the
learn.
output and input are going
You
to match.
knew.
Then.
And you
Listen,
learn,
and
right?
So
Exactly.
fast
Yeah.
forward,
they
him,
were
it's like,
able
well,
to
I'm not going
somehow
to praise
set
you for getting a
limits
degree.
and
'cause you
parameters,
went
and you
away
just
to get
knew
a
better.
degree. You didn't go away
I guess
to
because
And
I
early
realized
too.
that now that
Right,
I'm an,
right.
we're adults, and every
Then
now
I
and then,
made, I mean,
mommy and I
again,
are talking, and
from my
I ask
perspective,
him like, okay, Sharon
when
and I
I
were
went
pretty
to
quiet as kids.
university,
I grant you that
sell
we
you
weren't
the
like wilding
notion
out, right? But but we were
you'll
still
get
children,
a job.
and I was
Quiet.
like, I don't
Oh my
actually
gosh.
understand
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you kept us in line, because
I didn't get a
she
job
is
very
the
quick.
world's most,
Well,
the
yeah.
quietest, most
I
gentle,
graduated.
soft-spoken person you
It
could
took
ever
me
hope to
almost a
meet.
year to get
But
a
But let me
job.
tell you, when
Yeah.
when that,
And
as
the
Sharon
only,
called
and
it,
put
the
it this
vein
way,
of
the job I
steel,
got, I was
Yes.
when the
qualified
vein
to
of
at the
steel
age of
revealed
16.
itself in the vocal
Right.
cords and in the tone,
yeah.
And
you
I,
just
and I
knew.
remember
You
before I
had
got
you, yeah.
The
You dial it back.
quick,
6
the
o'clock in the
steel
morning,
and the look,
Mhm.
and you
Dad
just
comes in
knew.
the bedroom.
Yes.
You know when you're
Still in bed.
growing up and when you heard the saying,
And I'm
looking out here,
and I'm
I feel.
half asleep,
Oh yeah.
forgetting
Oh,
who
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with. He
And
said,
I
"What
said,
does
I
that mean?"
haven't got a job.
Until you feel it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If you have to ask, you
Big
probably can
mistake.
feel it.
yeah.
Exactly.
You know? And
My
it's
mum
like,
used to keep saying when we were younger, like she's ambidextrous. And we think,
well, I
what
didn't
does
go
that
to
mean?
university until we found out.
Right.
What's your point? The hard way.
Literally the hard way.
So,
Literally,
so
you're pausing
kind
and
of
playing,
as
man.
they say,
My
hard ways you
question-
can't
my
hear, hard
question
ways you
then
can feel. The
be-
question then becomes,
Right.
is there a memory
it's-
you have of
It's,
him
I mean, you know, when you're at
actually
school
saying to you,
and you're talking to
you know,
your white English.
yeah, you did
Yeah.
did well? Is there
And they say,
something
no,
where you
Mum,
did
that
you,
can't tell me what to
you
do.
surpassed
I know
expectations
the
in
black
some
kids
way
go,
that your parents
Come,
appreciated?
come. White boy, say it again.
They can't?
Say it again.
Okay.
I
yeah.
saw
I
it.
think
It's a
have
different
our
experience.
answer.
I
People
saw
that
a
want to go
different
home when they want to
side
go
to my
home. And
dad
you're thinking, but you ain't.
when he and I went to
What?
St. Kitts together.
How are you
Okay.
doing
Oh,
this?
nice. Okay.
So-
When
And
was
then,
that?
you know,
It's a different
at
world.
at no
We
stage
went to
did our
St.
parents say
Kitts.
to us,
Mhm.
"Oh, what would you like? Christmas Eve,
No.
Oh, no.
1990. That would have been a trap.
Okay.
You'd have said,
Oh,
what do you
wow.
want to give me?
Yeah.
You did the whole
You know,
Y2K thing.
parents-
That
my parents-
better be the answer, or
But
you're
we
in
went
trouble.
because
Parents
my
never
Oh
said
my
that.
gosh.
And how was
dad's
your day?
eldest.
That's
So
a trap.
Yeah.
we
mean,
went,
how was
and I
my
was
day?
freelance, so he says, "Look, can you come with me?"
Mhm.
Right.
So now
And
that's
up until then, I've been to St. Kitts quite a few times.
Mhm.
And
Oh boy.
I'd always stay
Mm-mm.
with my mum's side of the family, so
Okay.
Too
and I'd
funny.
go and visit my dad's side. Of the family.
You know,
So
I
when
was
go and
actually,
visit
I was
my
hoping that
dad's
we would get
side of the
into
family,
talking about
some
stuff
of
like
his
this,
friends,
because
like, hey, Puck is funny, you know.
just
And
the
I'm like,
shared West Indian connection. That's one of the
My
things
dad.
that when we first sort of
My
all
dad's
met
funny.
up on
Nah,
LinkedIn,
get the wrong man. Yeah,
that
Puck
was
is-
one of the things that
nah.
it sort of made it most
when I went
interesting. You know
with-
that
Yes.
okay,
Uh-huh.
yes, we're
I
living
saw-
in different.
I mean, my
in
dad
different
walked with a
countries, but we have
swagger
this similar
anyway.
shared
Right.
sort of
Right.
cultural
But I saw a different
experience.
swagger.
You
in
know,
St.
and
Kitts.
yes,
This is
Yeah,
the
for
I think that's
sure.
one of the things that surprised
my family back
and
in St.
the kind of
Kitts, 'cause now you're
conversations we had. I
Yeah.
was like, well, this isn't
And
a
it's
man
like,
I eat.
what
You
you
eat Saturday soup.
right.
I grew up on Saturday.
And I think I'd said something, and he said, and I
Yeah.
go, "But you're in
Talking
England,
about
something." And he
something.
said,
Yeah,
"Yeah, you're right."
You know who the
Almost
parents
fell
are
off my
there.
chair because my
Right.
dad never ever told me
Exactly.
inside the house was
Wow.
Katisha.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your parents,
Exactly.
so for kids, black
Look
kids
to him
born
like,
here,
okay, is this
the
a trap?
parents will say,
He's
"What are
agreeing
you saying
with
to us?
me.
You're British." I said, "You're
It's,
English."
He was-
it's interesting
Mhm.
hearing you say
But
that.
what about you?
No,
sort of,
we're British.
It
We're
makes me
Katisha. But
wonder
you're English.
how many,
Yes.
you know, many of
Okay,
us
so
that
you
are
leave
sort
the
of
house,
living
And
in
you're
a
not saying to the
country
white
that
people,
either is
"Greetings,
not
white
our
people,
own or
we're
does not
English like
accept
you."
us, or some
No.
combination
Yeah.
thereof.
No, pull
And
the
how
other
much
one.
They wouldn't
Mike.
even call you. They wouldn't even call you. They wouldn't
We
even
have
call you
to hide.
British.
And
Oh
So it's
my
kind of
gosh.
like,
just to make
I
it
call it.
through.
I say that our
Yeah.
generation
You
is an
know,
experiment.
because yeah, what you're describing is
Because a
literally
lot
two
of
different
West
things. You know,
Indians-
so
From what
your
perspective?
dad
Well, I
in
said
the
because a lot of
UK
West
and
Indians
your dad
didn't
in
plan to
his
stay.
home country.
Yeah,
Where,
talk
you
about
know, here
There was
run
so,
things.
I'm not saying everyone.
Right.
There was a so-called 5
Basically.
years.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely
come to
different.
England and a bit of money. You know,
And
I mean,
I relate to that.
and of course, you form relationships.
I think the only times we
Get a
saw
mortgage.
glimmers,
Before
Right.
you know it, you're here.
You're there.
But you're still hearing your parents talk about
Mhm.
West Indies have beaten England.
Right.
Or
And home is always
boxing,
home.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
When you
England
laugh,
never,
my dad would sit
England
there.
never becomes
My dad
home.
was sitting in the chair like he's boxing, you know, right? Because I'm a generation who were born here.
And that was the heyday of West Indies cricket as well.
Still not.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
I grew up. My favorite
Yes.
sport.
because you
growing
knew you
up
were English.
Because even your teacher told you went. Now a lot of my generation,
Yeah.
let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
Football
Yeah.
is the national sport of Britain. So it's like
Right.
cricket for me.
Yeah.
I was. I go to Sankit, so like English. I was Gary Somers. I was Viv Richards. I was Slide Boy, Joe Garner, and then you try and do your parents' patois, and it's
Three W's.
But you're not really managing
it
it.
doesn't quite.
Well,
I met some of those guys and actually shook. And then you know when you get like chicken and you eat it, and after he'd retired, and you clean all the flesh out of chicken. At my local pub, I'd never ever been in. I finished. Nah, man, you don't eat more. You see the big body, so you try and style it out. That's just pure powder left on the plate. All the men looking at me like, wow.
No, when you eat a chicken, there is nothing left.
That's right.
And it's like every bowl.
Right. Don't even try to play it off like that. Get every little thing out that the middle of that bone.
It used to be young girl, and it's even like this. I'm never gonna wash again. This definitely a Caribbean Christmas until I met.
Until
right.
My mum would start making cake from like say September, queued up, like so much alcohol poured on the cake.
It is the most wonderful thing, though.
Inspired me not just, and even just the way we were. And he looked like very much holding my hand, shaking in the home, everything that you said.
Yeah.
And then your parents giving you the pep talk. Finish talking and be English. In my head, I could have like James. How am I supposed to style it out? I'm like, I think for a lot of my generation, man, I'm just gonna go home, and so I got home. And my dad was still alive, so I phoned my dad. I said, especially with the whole George Floyd incident. And I thought he was going to go, and he went, it happened the day before my birthday.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, Dad, I met Viv Richards. I shook his hand. As sad as it was, as horrific as it was, what happened to George Floyd.
Oh, boy.
I think we reflect. So I finished talking to him. We've been living, and I sat down off our line with the neon on it. I got to bathe my skin before I don't want to wash my hand. And suppressing our voice. I get it. I don't want to wash my hand. On the whole thing about
now you finally got it.
Narratives. Even as a kid trying to, it became a general story. I used to pretend I was from Backyard. I wasn't a yard where Jamaica, Trinidad, St. Kitts, Barbados.
Which yard?
Exactly.
It's strange. It's strange when that happens. I remember actually when I was in France meeting Arrow.
What's your personal name?
Arrow, singer of Hot Hot
Hot,
for those who are not
talked to a lot of
clued up.
And they'll say,
and it was one of these weird things where they had like a carnival at the start of every summer. And as part of that, they had some Caribbean people. So I had been there in France for a long, cold, very white year. And then I said to them, "There's no such country." I was in the town one day,
no language,
and I heard steel pan, and so. I did a double take.
That sounds like a quote to me.
I jumped along with it does, and so on, and then I discovered that there was a show later that night, and Arrow was going to be performing.
What is black?
And so I went, and then
somehow
I met the guy whose dad was organizing the show, and so I went backstage and was able to meet him. And
so I showed them pictures of their granddad, who was my dad's cousin.
These people who are Caribbean royalty, right? You don't expect, you don't expect to ever be in the same space as them, right?
How is it different?
Arrow is a king.
When men go to court, black and white, we've always had black heroes put on a suit. So to meet one of your heroes. So I said to the young black guy, so I said, okay, so you're saying a black man who dresses in a suit, dressing like a white man. So when you're going to court, are you trying to convince the judge that you're white? He was one of my heroes. So I put him on the suit.
Yes.
Oh my
God. So we need to look beyond the colour of our skin, and we need to look at our narrative. When I go back to St. Kitts, the telling of our stories. Because there's a way, because I think we have forgotten. Even some of my friends here say, "Snort like your dad," and I didn't see because our voice has been suppressed for so long. I didn't see it. It's like, well, who are you? I'm a black man.
Is it a forgetting, or is it never having known how to?
Well, both. My dad used to have
erasure,
both.
even.
Yeah. But if you look at it, my man, who do we now look for to be the sages of story? Who's my man? Well, you say to us, we're going down the road for come back. Disney. And by the time we figured out what he meant by that, he's come back. Ripped off. You think, that's gone down, he's going down Bugs Bunny. Isn't that Brer Rabbit? He's coming back. He lives here.
Right?
Yeah. We're going down the road for come back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a very
it's like, what about us?
Caribbean or West Indian construction to say, okay, I go in and come back.
For one of the sessions.
You don't think about it. You grow up around it, you hear it, and you don't think that.
About
obviously, you're
those
stories,
and they actually exist in every culture.
The difference between let's say obviously you don't say that if you're at the airport about to take a flight, right? You can go back hundreds of years and you can find versions, in African tales or something like that, right? But going back millennia, even those are stories that have been handed down, right? So you can't necessarily assume that they come from one particular culture. Our words, our phrases, our constructions. But often their origins is. And what I find fascinating is how many of them. So there's this across the different Caribbean islands. Nothing coming out because you said African ancestry, there's a version of that, which is a nonsense, really. In Trinidad, there's a version you'll hear in Barbados, almost not identical, but it is come out of that culture originally. I find that whole thing so fascinating. As one of the things that I find interesting when we're on the Caribbean people come out on LinkedIn and start chatting, right? We're representing a range of different islands.
White people want a natural
we understand
tan.
each other.
Here's a funny thing for me. Have you ever heard a white person kissing their teeth? Natural tan.
But but they would now come out and admit it, I mean, around that. They'll say yes, just that, but not go after the tall, dark, and handsome, as we call it. But they'll never actually not a long drawn out.
When you hear and it's like when it sounds wrong.
So much of what we are, it does.
But at the same time,
we do naturally. They just want
to
siphon it off.
White people don't realize how many
and claim it. But without ever giving credit.
No, they don't. That's a whole other discussion there.
I mean, if I get into a conversation with white people, I remember having a conversation with one white person trying to change some trousers. Said to me, "What's it like being?" This was about 2 years ago. So I said, "What's it like being white?" And she was stunned. This cricket team. I said, "You can't answer that, England." So I said, "What do you expect me to answer? What it's like to be black when you, as a white person, can't explain to me what it's like to be white."
I mean, the good questions, James.
Yeah, and they've got quite a few CDs, and everybody in the bank, even the bank tellers.
I was going to say, do you consider yourself to be an activist, an anti-racism activist? How do you describe yourself? And how do you see your work as it is now coming into this whole renewed focus on anti-racism?
Thinking that will get me by. I suppose by definition now, I am seen as an activist, and I'm thinking, I would. If I was going to give myself pure petition, it's a black narrative activist.
Okay.
I get to the counter now.
Can you
hear was, okay, chap, can you change these trap? My clients at the moment, and I'm thinking that's not my voice, and everybody turned to me. Englishman, are you? They blamed me for Western white people.
No!
There's somebody I can recommend that you deal with. I've never sounded speaking. I've dealt with you lot for 16 years, man. I remember that evening. We need more help. Show the cricket highlights. I'm growing up in England. So again, English sacking potential clients. Well, I'm like, when West Indies need to deal with understanding who we are, where it was on TV. If you are a copywriter, English didn't say, "Oh, we're not showing it because West Indies beat us." Let's not think it's you're black. Because at the end of the day, if you say I'm a copywriter, some people say, I'm a white copywriter. Putting on the young and the restless. You unique. What's the young and the restless? I didn't know what the young and the restless was. Bring some of our personal narrative. Soap opera comes on, and I'm like to the table. I find myself saying, "This is who I am as a person." We don't do that in English. Yes, I've got skills as a copywriter, but this is what I bring in English.
Yeah.
We lost. We are natural storytellers.
Absolutely.
But everybody in the bank blame me. Englishman.
It's a funny thing how you sit between those two cultures, and you're kind of neither one nor the other. You're both but neither.
You have to fill in the gaps. One of the things I used to say to my
your dad is just, it sounds like he was such a character.
When we wanted a colour television, me and my brother said, "I'm a bad man." I said, "No, when you got saying kids, you're wondering how English you are." And my dad said, "Because why you want colour TV when you're not grass screen?" I said, "Listen, as soon as you come off the plane, the way you walk."
He makes a good point. He made a good point.
Hard to argue with. Weird thing is, when you hear them go, "Are you English?" and he goes, "All right." And that's it. I'm not called English. When he says all right, shut up. Englishman.
Conversation over.
Oh gosh. So we ended up paying for colour television. When we went in the telephone, sitting next to a 10-year-old boy on the bus going, and he's going, English man, where you dealing? Paying for the telephone. This boy's got new phone, but you don't need these things. When I got my own place,
that's something similar happens to me now when I go back home.
You have too much.
Is that the taxi drivers,
why you have 2 TVs?
They call out to you.
And I'm like, wow, father.
But when I was growing up,
one's in the living room.
Right. I don't know what has changed.
And he's like, you go, if you lie down and sleep,
apparently I look well now. I don't feel that way.
Oh my God.
I have all these pair of shoes.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't talk that way either.
And it's always in my head when I'm doing stuff.
Me and the taxi drivers.
If you saw the amount of books I got, you have too much. You read them all?
And they assume
but I'm going around to it. You have too much stuff.
I don't have to.
And every day I say to myself,
from here.
I know. The same thing used to happen to me when I was living in England and I came back to Barbados on holiday.
Right.
And it's like all of a sudden.
And I'll even question myself.
Always ignored my existence. Were picking me out as a foreigner. Now,
and I'm explaining to myself what I mean.
I've always been a bit of a foreigner in Barbados. Both of us have because we grew up in different parts of the Caribbean. I spent my
and he knows who I'm talking
between the
about.
ages of 5 and 12. I lived in Trinidad. I don't have a Bajan accent. So they've always been able to pick me out. The weird thing is how they can scope you out before you even say anything.
Yes.
No, man,
like you said, James, just by just by your presence, your existence, by the way you walk, something.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but
nice.
Meat and chicken and fish relish. Going to the Caribbean, relish, no English.
What?
Yeah.
You tell to my mum, why is he talking about? I look like my
yeah.
As I get older now, I'm like the James family have a very distinct. Well, my man yesterday, so I've been and I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning into the James, isn't it?
But don't we all turn into our parents eventually?
It's wonderful though, yeah. You can't hide, James. I get it here in England as well. You're James, isn't it? Certain thing, you're talking to your friends. And
actually. So
when we all say,
yes, no, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but when I go to my dad's village,
right.
Oh my gosh. When I was a kid, I just wanted chips. So when my dad died, now I want everything but chips.
I think what happens is maybe.
Yes.
So I said to my mom,
I guess there's always this feeling that you know that
to all his friends.
You're not 100% sort of with your people, and you feel that absence somehow. And so any chance you get to build that connection and to sort of experience your authentic culture. You
then you get big men. We've got with my dad.
That's why, as Sharon mentioned earlier, Caribbean LinkedIn, and us being able to, and I'm like the three of us sometimes have conversations in
James,
we'll sprinkle out like a couple of phrases here and there.
Stop it.
Oh my God,
that is so West Indian.
Oh my gosh. Recent thread.
Yeah. If there's a shot, they're going to shoot
can't remember her last name. Oh my gosh. Asking about the tunes.
I said, hey, you're not going there, man.
This weekend. And people started dropping in.
Nice, nice.
Oh boy. It just kind of set us up for the weekend, No shame at all. No shame. You didn't even have to
no shame at all. And
being able to
be your authentic self.
Yes. Yes, and somebody said, who knew there's a Caribbean LinkedIn and nobody invited me before.
I mean, I found when I'm writing certain posts, it's like sometimes you just a bit of patois would just says what you want to say.
It does. Well, we're language people, right? So it's about using the right phrase at the right time.
Right.
I mean,
if you're having a conversation with someone and you have to say, and it just done. And as opposed to, we'll just conclude for now. Nah, it done.
It done.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing.
Very different.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So I guess we should get to our final question.
Yeah, we've been
talking for a while.
Chatting for a good while. We've been chatting for a good while, and we could probably go on for longer.
Yeah. But so what is next? Sis, I want you to do the next bit because
right. So what we want to know is wagwan for in the Pogson world.
Right.
So what's coming up? Like what can your followers and fans of whom, and we include ourselves in that number.
Yeah.
what can
we look forward to?
Well, if you've noticed, I haven't posted anything for about a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been writing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. That stuff I've been writing is not for LinkedIn posts.
Okay.
I set myself a challenge of writing a trilogy of books.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Right. So
fiction?
No.
Oh, non-fiction. How exciting. How's it going?
It's going really well. There's a friend of mine who, if I'm trying something new, because she's an avid reader,
right,
I'll send it to her, and all I say to her is it readable?
Yeah.
Because as writers, the amount of people who write stuff, when I say readable, if you sent me something that had no paragraphs and it was just like pages and pages of block text, that's not readable to me.
No.
Right.
I'm not reading it. I don't care if the cure for cancer's in it. I'm not reading it. I'm not. So I send it to my friend and I just say, is it readable? If she comes back with, so she goes, oh yes, I like this. I'm not looking for compliments. It's nice, but I just want to know, is it readable? So if I'm trying new stuff, I send it to her because she reads.
Yeah.
When I first started, she goes, yeah, but James, I'm not a writer. And I says, exactly, you're a reader.
Yeah.
And as a writer,
intended for readers.
You want your stuff to be read.
Yes.
But
yeah.
I just don't like stuff that's just blocks of text and whatever. So I'm working on one. I can say is based on my creative memoirs.
Okay.
Parts of my life. Another one is looking at it from a black man's perspective.
All right.
And the other one I keep to myself for now. But I'm kind of like. But also, here's everything that I'm kind of looking at. The whole thing about, can you write a book that doesn't necessarily get published as a book?
Explain.
Okay.
Imagine now your mom or your grandmother's, or the family recipes. So you want them all in one book, don't you? Like, oh, Granny, can you write down all the recipes?
Yeah.
But you're not going to publish it. It's just that, you might say, well, I want to be able to pass something down to my children or cook something different.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the whole thing because I started working with theatre performers.
Right. Oh.
I'm now looking at, supposing you've got an idea, the two of you have got an idea, and he said, you know what? Let me write it down completely. That most people would say that's a book. But you could say, well, I've written down something that could be a blog. That could be a white paper.
Yeah.
That could be a keynote speech. That could be,
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the whole thing about collating them as a book.
Right.
But not necessarily having to publish them as a book.
Right. Okay.
I like it.
I've performed, one of the things I didn't say, but I've actually, I wrote and performed and produced a one-man show a few years back.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
So and that kind of, I pushed myself to do that. So at the moment I'm writing them, and I approached my one-man show. The way I wrote it was like I was writing a concept album.
Okay.
So I wrote 10 tracks.
I love it.
Okay.
So
wait. So they have a link to this thing or anywhere or what?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
It's still, nah. I'll let you know when it's happening. And remember when I approached you guys last year to say if I can rewrite some of your posts and stuff.
Yes,
I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten.
Okay.
That's fine.
So that's still going to happen. So what I'm going to do is when I do it, I'm going to email it to you.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
And if you approve of it, and if you agree, I'll do an edited version that I'll put on LinkedIn, obviously, and I'll tag you to it.
Right.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to that.
But I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten.
That's fine. Listen, I mean, I obviously, never thought that you'd forgotten, and
no,
life happens. I mean, Sharon is the consistent one. You would know this from following us. Sharon is the consistent one of the two of us. And every now and then I come up with a burst of creativity because life happens, and sometimes you cannot force the muse, right? Yes. So it has to happen when it happens. But I'm looking forward to it. Whatever it is, whatever form it's in.
Well, I know it's going to be readable. I know I'm going to enjoy it. If your past work is anything to judge by, when it comes, everything in its own time, right? When it comes, it will be the right time.
And I think the work that I'm doing with my clients as well is
is basically getting them to tap into what they already know. What I'm finding with Black people in particular, we feel we need more qualifications to do what we're already doing.
Oh we do.
Gosh, yes.
That is true. That is because people doubt our expertise all the time. Yeah. So we feel like we have to overdo it.
But also as well, then it's like, so why are you doing that? Because I need it. Who's told you that you need it? No one's told me. I just feel I need it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the, boy, you white people, man. It's like, you lot can be mediocre and great. We have to be excellent to be average. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man.
Oh, wow.
So I'm saying to Black people I'm talking to, I said, okay, let's look at the skills you got. Obviously, if you wanted to be a brain surgeon, there's certain qualifications you need.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to people is, let's put job titles to one side. Put that to one side.
Yeah.
What can you do? What are you great at? What is it you aspire to do? And let's look at the skills.
I might need some coaching myself.
Right? And let's look at the skills you've got. And this is a bit about, you know that saying, sell the sizzle, not the sausage. Or some people say, sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've forgotten how to do that. White people do it all the time.
So we need to tap back into that. That's what you're helping people to do, to tap back into the sizzle.
But also have to say, okay, so it's about the story of who you are.
Right.
That's why I've kind of moved. I used to try and get commissions in fiction.
Right.
Here's one of the things I found, especially when you're dealing with white producers. You create a Black character and they'd say, no, that's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not Black.
And then when you ask them how many Black people they know, they don't know any.
Yeah.
So how do they know it's realistic? Whereas if I was writing a piece about my dad, and my dad said, what do you mean? And I said, no, I don't think he'd say that. I said, shut your mouth. That's what he said.
Yeah.
You can't change that.
Exactly.
So I just got fed up of gatekeepers and these producers trying to, and I'm like, no.
You're telling your story your way.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't care whether you like it. As long as you understand what I'm saying and what I'm trying to do, you don't have to agree with it.
Let me tell you, that part you just said there about not caring whether people like it, there is so much power in that. And, you know, that's definitely something that I myself am tapping more and more into. You know, you have to have your own platforms, and you have to have some control over your own narrative, like you said, and release the need to be tied to the, you know, the likes and the, you know, all of that, which the likes are nice, the metrics are nice, right? It's good to know if something that you've written is resonating. But if you put it out there and nobody else likes it, right? You still have to be happy with it. You still have to love it. You have to love your baby that you've just made. You have to love it.
And I think Sharon, you'll agree with what I'm about to say. I think there's something about when you're being a freelancer for a certain level of time.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a freedom.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Was it you know the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. I have to keep checking myself because for 20 years I've just been, is my way or shut up.
No, I agree. You definitely have that greater sense of control over your time and your space and and what you do. And you know, there's certain things that obviously I don't worry about anymore, not being in an office setting, right? So, you know, you put what it is out there, and sometimes it resonates with people, sometimes it doesn't. I always take the view that it reaches the people it's supposed to reach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at my time as an employee, miserable. You know, miserable time. And it wasn't a long time. So when I say I've reinvented myself, I've never told people I can do something that I can't do.
Yeah.
But there was a joy in reinventing myself. I remember I never told any of my friends, for example, that I was going to be a copywriter. Because they said, nah, man, you can't do that. So one of my friends, they said, James, when did you find out you were a copywriter? I said, when I got the first check. Up to that point, I believed I was.
Yeah.
And the client said, you are.
Listen, that was how I became a professional blogger. I won a competition, and the part of the prize was a blogging gig. I said, wait, I could get paid to do this? All right, then. And that was the beginning of that story. That was the beginning of that story. I got a payment. And I said, okay, now that I can get paid by one person, I can get paid by other people, right?
Right.
And we've got to have the belief that we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But don't say something that you can't do. Because I'll never say to you, yeah, I can build your house. I can't build a house.
I've actually discovered very recently. It's not recently that I've discovered, but I've been tapping in more recently into the power of saying no. So, I've had a couple of calls with prospective clients. And in a couple of cases, I've said to them, I'm not telling you I can't do this, but it's not my sweet spot and you'd probably be better off with somebody else. I said, yes, I'm competent and I'm versatile and I probably could do it. But you really want somebody who's an expert in this. And here are the things I'm expert in that you can hire me to do. Right. Yes. And that is extremely liberating. And that, I think, ties into what you were saying, James, about, having been freelancing for 16 years now, I am very confident in, what is my sweet spot in terms of work and what is not, what I'm able to do, what I'm willing to do, what I want to do. And I am steering myself as far as possible towards the things that can both bring me joy and bring in the big checks.
Yeah.
Right. That confluence of those two things, right?
But you see what you're saying there about tapping into saying no.
Yeah.
I just tap into being a child again because all I ever heard was no. Now it sounds like no. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Enforcing strong boundaries.
Absolutely.
Oh boy. Well, I have to say this has been a pleasure, James.
Oh my gosh.
We could not have asked for a better person to be our first guest on the Introvert Sisters. It has been an absolute delight. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Really loved it. Thank you for so much. Thank you.
All right. We'll catch you again on LinkedIn.
All right. And thanks, everybody. Tune in to the Introvert Sisters, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Introvert Sisters. Loved what you heard? You can catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major platforms. Subscribe, rate, and write a review. Find us online at theintrovertsisters.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Introvert Sisters. See you next time. Peace.